Hey, hello, and welcome to Prime Code Media. This is the fourth episode of our CSS for Beginners series. My name is Sana Mapena. In this video, I'll be explaining the CSS syntax and also show you how you can use it to style your HTML web page. But before we go ahead, please make sure you subscribe to this channel and click that bell icon to get notifications when new videos come out. CSS syntax is made up of a rule which consists of a selector and a declaration block. The selector refers to an HTML element that you want to style, and this HTML element could be anything. It could be a level heading, for example, an H1. It can be a paragraph, any HTML element that you are targeting for styling. A declaration block is made up of one or more declarations separated by a semicolon inside a set of curly braces. Now, let's put everything that you are looking at on this slide into practice. To do that, I'm going to make use of a simple web page that I have created specifically for this episode. This web page has an H1 with the words syntax and 5 paragraphs with the repetitive words CSS syntax inside. And I have already created a style sheet for this website. Here is that CSS folder, and this is the styles.css file. This is where we are going to write our CSS code to style our index.html page, which is our home page. And I have already opened this website inside our browser. We can just go check it out. As you can see, it's not styled. It's pure HTML, no styling whatsoever. Let's just refresh to check if everything is working. Everything is working fine. Now, what I want to do, I want to change the color of this H1 here. To do that, let's go back to our code editor. Inside our styles.css code, I am going to put in the H1, which is the selector as explained earlier. I'm going to follow up this with a set of curly braces. Inside this set of curly braces, I'm going to insert a property and a value pair. The first thing that I am going to write down is the property. What do we want to change with the H1? What is it that we want to change? We want to change the color. Let's write down the color. This is the CSS property, and then we are going to put a colon. After this colon, we are going to write the value of this CSS property. Now, the value is to what do we want to change this color to, because by default it is black, and then we want to change it. What do we want to change it to? We are going to change it to, let's say, red, and see how it looks. And then we are going to close this off with a semicolon. So a semicolon, I can say it is an equivalent of a full stop, because a semicolon says this line of code ends here. Now let's save our work and go back to our browser to see if this code is rendered accordingly. I'm going to refresh. As you can see at the moment, the CSS syntax words still have the default color, which is black. Refresh. There we go. We have successfully managed to change the color of this text from black to red, and we did that by using CSS inside our styles.css file. Let's take a look again at this line of code. As explained earlier in the opening of this episode, you first put in the selector. This is an HTML element that we selected for styling. And then we put in the set of curly braces. Inside the set of curly braces, we put in the property. This is that thing that we want to change on this H1, and then the value is red. This is the color that we wanted to change the color of the H1 to. and then we close this off with a semicolon to signify the end of this line of code. Remember earlier I said a declaration block is made up of one or more declarations separated by a semicolon inside a set of curly braces. What did I mean by that? What I meant was that inside this set of curly braces, we can have multiple declarations. For example, let's say we have changed the color to red, but this is not the only thing that we want to style. Maybe let's say we also want to change the background color as well. We can do it inside the set of curly braces. Let's do it and see if it works. The property here is background color. Now this is the thing that we want to change this time around, and then we want to change it to what? Let's change it to blue, and then close this line off with a semicolon. Let's save our work and then go back to our browser and then refresh. Now here we go. Now we were able to apply to change the color of this text, and again change the background color of this text. We did both these types of styling inside the same set of curly braces. So this is what CSS also allows us to do, that is to use multiple declarations inside the same set of curly braces. But now you can imagine that if maybe you have, let's say we have 5 declarations and so on inside a set of curly braces, you will obviously run out of space. So what do you do? So what you will do is that you will write the declarations on a separate line. Okay, you will just write each declaration on a separate line, and this is also important for easy viewing of the code. What you will do, for example, you'll do this, make sure that this line is on its own, and then let's save. So CSS allows us to do this. As you can see, we can come back here and then refresh. Everything is still the same. Our code doesn't break. So CSS, once again, allows us to write declarations on separate lines. So to separate declarations and make sure that each declaration is on its own line. And as I said, once again, this assists in terms of easy viewing of the code. What I think is also important to note is that looking at this code here, it is very important that you include everything that is supposed to be included here, because should you by mistake miss something, then your code will break. Something won't be rendered. For example, if the value of a property is invalid, the declaration will be deemed invalid and it will be ignored by the CSS engine. What do I mean by this? Let's say, for example, here you had the property which is color, but by mistake you wrote large. I'm just making an example. You made a mistake, you wrote large instead of writing out a color, and then CSS will know that, okay, the property is fine, this is a valid CSS property, but the value is invalid. And because the value is invalid, this line of code as a whole, this declaration will be invalid. Let's save our work and then you'll see what I'm talking about. I've saved my work, and then but I like Atom because when your code is invalid or if there's a mistake, it lets you know. Let's say, for example, you just ignore this because you think maybe it refers to something that has nothing to do with your code, and then you carry on. Let's go and check inside our browser. Let's refresh. Now you'll see that our H1 has gone back to its default color, which is black. And this is because CSS ignored this line of code, because this line has inside it an invalid value of a CSS property. Another thing that let's just put that red back again. As I was saying again, that you should make sure that you put everything that is supposed to be here, or else your code will break or it won't be rendered accordingly. For example, if you were to by mistake forget to include this colon here, and then you have these words like this, you have color and there's no space, the CSS engine won't know which one is property and which one is the value, because it relies on the colon to determine or to interpret correctly which one is the colon and which one is the property and which one is the value. Let's save our work and go back and check how everything is going. Once again, Atom is also showing us that there's something wrong. Again, if you happen to ignore this, or maybe somehow maybe the text editor you are using doesn't provide notifications when there's something wrong with your code, let's come to our browser and then refresh, and then you will see that in terms of the styling, nothing has changed. Our H1 is still black, although we have specified red here, but because we forgot to include that colon in here, the CSS engine has ignored that line of code. It regards it as invalid. So for it to work, we will have to come back here and rectify our mistake, and then put back that colon, and then save our work, and then go check again. Atom will tell you that there are no errors. It means it's giving you a green light, a go ahead to say everything is fine. Let's check if indeed everything is fine. Let's refresh. Now we have our CSS back to the style that we included earlier, which is the red color. The question you might be asking yourself now is, what if we want to style multiple HTML elements? For example, we have other HTML elements that we also want to style the same way we have styled this H1. For example, if we also wanted these paragraphs to have the same color as the H1 and to also have the same background as the H1, we can do that. We can go to our styles.css, for example, come in here, as I explained earlier, put in the selector, which is the paragraph, a set of curly braces, and then put in the color, which is the property, and then the value will be red because we want our paragraphs to look just like the H1. And then let's do the background color, and then we'll say the background color is also blue. For example, maybe our explanation for this will be that we want consistency in terms of styling. Let's save everything and then go back to our browser to check. Let's refresh. Now everything is the same. We have managed to style our paragraphs in the same way that we styled our H1 by including a blue background and changing the text to red. But CSS provides us a better way of doing this if this is what we want to do. It allows us to use multiple selectors, to use a group of selectors, and when these group selectors are grouped, they are called a selector group. How do we do that? For example, we will do that by deleting all this and then come here. We'll just include a comma and then put in a selector. We'll save our work. Let's go back to our browser. Now everything is still the same. We've still managed to style our website or web page this way, despite deleting those lines of code. And see how we've managed to style the entire page with very few lines of code. We've deleted the 3 lines of code and included just this selector in here to style these paragraphs to be the same as the H1. But now please note that you will be able to maybe use to group your selectors together if the styling of those elements is the same, or maybe you want consistency. But there's also a reason why sometimes you will use or you will target different HTML elements or style them separately. For example, it can be the case that maybe the colors and the background colors are the same, but for example the font types are different, or maybe there are other properties that are different. That will obviously force you to put them separately instead of styling them as a group. Still with regards to the syntax, what is also important, I think it's very important that I also mention this, the semicolon. It is actually not necessary to include a semicolon after the last declaration of a block. Remember earlier I explained that the semicolon is an equivalent of a full stop. So it's not necessary to include it after the last declaration of a block, but it's considered good practice because including it, you are making sure that you don't forget to add it when you decide to add more declarations. For example, for now, this might be the last declaration, but sometimes later, maybe you might decide to add some more styling. Then if you have included it like this, and then this will ensure that you don't forget to include it when you add some more declaration. So it's good CSS practice to always include it, even if it is after the last declaration. And there will obviously be times when you maybe want to explain some stuff regarding your code. Maybe there is something that you want to put in as a reminder for yourself. And to do that, you will have to write comments. To write comments, the syntax is / asterisk. And then you will write anything that you want to write in here. Let me just write CSS Syntax. And then you'll close this off with an asterisk and a / and then everything inside here, as you can see, it's visible, you can see it, you can read it, but this will be ignored by the browser. Let's just save and go check inside our browser. Let's just refresh. As you can see, the words syntax, they are not here, they are not rendered, and this is because this text has been commented out. It is only going to be visible to you as a developer because the browser has ignored it. So this is important. For example, if you want to put in some reminders, maybe there are some edits that you want to make to your code in future, and then when you come back to your code, you will remember that, okay, these are the changes that I had set myself out to make. And it also assists if you are collaborating with other developers so that they can see what is happening on your code. It provides a lot of explanation, so they don't have to try to contact you to ask you questions about your code. So everything will be there, including the explanations, and to do that, you will make use of these comments. For further reading on CSS properties, you can check w3schools.com. They have a very long list of CSS reference. They have a list of CSS properties arranged in alphabetical order. Another website that you can also check out is developer.mozilla.org or MDN Web Docs. You can just Google search them. They also have a very long list of these CSS properties. And that brings us to the end of this episode. In this episode, I explained the CSS and also used examples to show how it can be used. Thank you so much for watching. Please don't forget to subscribe to this channel and to click that bell icon to receive notifications when new videos come out. Until we code again next time, take care. Bye-bye.